This scene showed up for me the other day.
Hello, James?
Although it sparks conspiracy theories and explanations about the system, power, and manipulation, reading the comments about it, I noticed something interesting. The interpretations reflected less about the world and more about the people and their perspectives. You'll see soon. Watch the scene and share your thoughts. Then I'll explain my view.
Hello, James. Welcome. Did you like the island? My grandmother had an island, nothing to brag about. You could walk around it in an hour, but still, it was a paradise for us. One summer we paid a visit and discovered that the place was infested with rats. They came by fishing boat and began eating coconuts. How can rats be removed from an island? My grandmother taught me. We bury a barrel and leave it open. Then we put a coconut as bait. Then the rats go after the coconut, and one by one, they fall into the barrel. And after a month, we catch all the rats. But what do we do next? We throw the barrel into the ocean, we burn it, or we just leave it there. The rats start to get hungry, and one by one, they begin to devour each other. Until only two are left, the two survivors. And after that, we kill them. No, we catch them and release them in the trees. But now they don't eat coconut anymore. Now they only eat rats. We've changed their nature.
Interesting, right? Now it's clear that what this scene describes is not just a method of pest extermination. I imagine that throughout the scene, several theories must have crossed your mind. Feel free to share your interpretation in the comments. But what does it really show us? Should we be wary of any man who begins a conversation with a story about cannibal rats? That the world is cruel and only the strongest survive, that there's a big scheme behind the scenes controlling everything. Everyone who watches this scene projects their own ghosts onto it. Some see a portrait of politics, others a model of capitalism, and others a metaphor for modern society. And I can assure you that many will see this scene, and the first idea that comes to mind will be something like, this is what the Supreme Court does. This is something from the Workers' Party. These are the Bolsonaro supporters. This is the Matrix. Those same accusations as always, recycled in every single video on the internet, in any discussion about absolutely any topic. And look, it might even be that what you have to say makes total sense. It might even be that you find plausible justifications for what you're saying. But what I want to show you is that maybe this scene reveals something much deeper than our immediate reaction of hatred and dissatisfaction with what we see on the surface, with what we see and deal with every day. What I mean is that maybe the most revealing thing here isn't the scene itself, but our reaction to it. Because what I see in it isn't simply a rat game, but a mirror. And the reflection that this mirror shows us is disturbing. I'm telling you this because the natural reaction of the vast majority when seeing something like this is to pick a side and blame the other, as if it were a conditioned reflex, an automatic response, as if it were a trained animal. Why not? Like a rat in a barrel. And the worst part is that people do this and still think they're superior. They think their political outrage makes them nobler, that their choice of team makes them more enlightened, that defending one side with fanaticism makes them morally superior, as if simply choosing a battlefield could free them from being mere pawns. But let's take a step back and think, what's the idea of the one who put the rats in the barrel? It's not just about confining them, it's about dividing them, sparking conflict, and turning an external war into an internal one. So eventually, there's no need to control them. They handle it themselves. That's invisible power. The most efficient control, infiltrating the minds of those controlled. And doesn't what I'm describing sum up the history of humanity? A system that needs from time to time to make small corrections, realign parts, readjust some gears, a crisis here, economic collapse there, war to reset the board. But in the end, the true triumph of power does not lie in these occasional interventions. It's in the fact that, once shaped, the very pieces of the game sustain their own existence. That is, the pawns have already been trained to keep the system running without even realizing they're doing it. And more than that, they believe that this is their true nature. They think that rivalry, competition, the need to destroy others to ensure their own survival are inevitable characteristics of human beings. But what if they're not? What if, like the rats in the barrel, we've simply been conditioned to believe that? When we dive deeper, we soon realize that the logic of the barrel isn't simply about left or right, rich or poor, conservatives or progressives. The logic of the barrel is the logic of division. And these divisions don't stand on their own. They are designed, they are encouraged by those in power. What happens when we lock the rats inside the barrel? In practice, we're using their own nature against themselves. And what does that mean? It means that desperation, the instinct for survival, and in this specific case, hunger, can be manipulated to shape behavior. And that's the crucial point. It doesn't matter what you desire. If I control the environment, I control how you satisfy that desire. The rats want to survive, but inside the barrel, there's only one way to do that: by devouring each other. The system isn't designed to prevent you from feeling hungry. It's there to make sure that the only way to satisfy it is the way it wants. And while we're busy chasing crumbs, fighting over ideologies, and attacking each other, the real game goes on. Imagine if the rats united. They would start multiplying again, spreading again, becoming a problem again. But as long as they're busy destroying themselves, there's no threat to the power on that island. As Machiavelli used to say, if you want to stay in power, divide those who give you power. That's how great strategists control societies. They don't need to suppress revolts or crush opponents with brute force. They just need to make sure the masses never find a common enemy. While society fights internally, everyone believes the other side is the real problem. While the rats keep devouring each other, the game of power goes on. Look around. How many things divide us? Politics, social classes, religions, ideologies, even soccer. Notice how the other is seen as an enemy, not as someone with a different worldview, but as a threat that needs to be fought. No matter how similar our lives are, if we're on opposite sides, we automatically hate each other, because humanity loves to think in extremes. Right or wrong, black or white, left or right, we're programmed to pick a side, define an enemy, and believe we're right. And when I talk about programming, it might sound shallow and easy to get rid of, but believe me, it's not. By the way, I wanted to invite you to something. I developed a series where I brought together dense concepts and ideas that took me years to write and develop. And because of that, unfortunately, I don't make it available here on YouTube. But it's a series of 10 episodes, more than 4 hours of content that I have no doubt will lead you to a different understanding of life. Take a look at the comments I received from people who have already finished watching. And there's more. In the coming days, I'll add a free module on power, manipulation, and seduction. If you're interested, check out this video right here on YouTube, where I explain more about it. But going back to what I was saying, it's very likely that after analyzing this story about the rats, some people might think, but wait a minute. What distinguishes humans from other animals is our rationality. We have reason, while rats do not. That's why they act foolishly, not realizing they were programmed that way. We're different. Now, are we really as rational as we like to believe? Believing in the superiority of human reason may be the most convenient illusion. Nietzsche had already exposed this fallacy a long time ago. He believed that man doesn't act on reason, but is driven by deep impulses and unconscious desires he doesn't understand. Reason is not the mechanism that drives our decisions. It is just the excuse we give for our choices after we've already made them. For example, consider any major life decision, picking a profession, a partner, or an ideology. Do you think you made all those choices rationally, analyzing every factor to reach the best conclusion? Nietzsche said that's a convenient illusion. Our decisions aren't guided by reason. They're guided by desires, impulses, and needs that we often don't even know where they come from. In fact, every choice you make is the result of a silent battle between these desires. Think about the decision to remain faithful in a relationship. You might believe that you choose not to cheat because of principles, values, or love. But Nietzsche said that if we look deeper, we'll realize it wasn't reason that decided for you. It was the strongest desire that won. Perhaps the wish for stability and to avoid guilt outweighed the fleeting urge to betray. Maybe the fear of loss outweighed the impulse for adventure, or maybe the opportunity just never came up. Whatever happened, it wasn't a rational calculation, it was a conflict of forces within you. And the reason? It came later to tell you a nice story. A story in which you convince yourself that you always knew what you were doing. A story that makes you believe you chose, but did you really? Oscar Wilde used to say that a man's emotions are awakened more quickly than his intelligence. Pain moves us more easily than ideas. Everything leads me to believe that on some level Nietzsche and Wilde were right. After all, that's exactly how we are manipulated. The barrel trapping us doesn't have to be steel. It can come from fear, indignation, or revolt. Since we don't think, we just react. Someone pulls an emotional trigger and you respond. Someone threatens you with misery and you work like a convict. You're told your group is under attack, so you strike back. Someone points out an enemy and you, without hesitation, make them the focus of your anger. Is that rationality? Or is that exactly what rats do in a barrel? Rats react to hunger, and hunger led them to devour each other. But humans have more sophisticated hungers that the system has learned to use against us. The hunger for acceptance makes us conformists. The hunger for status makes us competitive. The hunger for wealth and power makes us predictable. The hunger for security makes us submissive. The hunger for meaning makes us prey. Easy for any narrative that seems to fill the void, a hunger that is shaped by the very environment we are in. And when we look back, our nature has already changed. The problem is that we never realized we were programmed. Rats are trapped by hunger, while we are trapped by emotions. So the question arises, if the rats used to feed on coconuts, but the barrel conditioned them, making them forget what they were before, and when they are finally released, they don't even remember the coconuts anymore. And us, what were our coconuts? What used to nourish us before we were thrown into this barrel? What were we before we started devouring each other? Will we ever remember? Honestly, I don't know.